continuing with this wonderful international Fabrengen. As some said before, Mustama, much of the spoken words have been said already. But that's what a Fabrengen is about. Until it goes in. And same thing with a niggin. You can sing it again and again until something resonates. I didn't know the schedule of which sikhs are going to play when, but this last sikha took us back 30 years ago, standing in 770, and as the Rebbe is speaking these dramatic words, I remember just the blood draining. When you have a moment of shock, your blood drains and you don't know how to respond. And that was the reaction, just a shock. Although, as mentioned, the Rebbe and played already, the Rebbe spoke the concept, put in Chof Ches Nissan already, even longer and stronger, with explanations. But nevertheless, it was a whole different way. And of course, right away, the Yetzer Hara kicks in, and some people make explanations. But I remember Dafka then, it was definitely a big shock, and there were many Hasidim that didn't go to sleep that night. There were many Hasidim that gathered together, phone conferences, meetings, in basements, Crown Heights, Bachrim, Pashmish geschlafen a ganze Nacht in trying to figure out what's the response, what's the reaction, what's the response. And now it's 30 years later. Every day. Like some say, to make a date out of Chof Ches Nissan may be going against the whole Sikha. Because Chof Ches Nissan is not a date. Chof Ches Nissan, the Rebbe told us the urgency that every year needs to feel the responsibility and urgency to bring Moshiach at every moment. It's not about once a year Chof Ches Nissan marking the date. 30 years later, it means we're 30 years closer to Moshiach, and 30 years of more Golus. In life, it's simple, it sounds complicated, but it's simple. We live in a world, a little bit of a spoiled world. Growing up, especially those in New York, we depend on others to do things for us, like children, little children. Things are done for us, as they gave us. There was a word from the Rebbe to Mendel, after the first few years of Shlichus. I remember the exact lashon, he repeated it a few times. The Rebbe said, no, it's time to start walking on your own. You feel it by hand. Obviously, everything was new. Shlichus was new. The Rebbe answered every little question. And now it's time to walk on your own. What does it mean to be responsible for something? If a person knows he needs to get a car and he doesn't have money and he's the one responsible, so the default Yetzer Hara says, maybe I'll win the lottery, maybe the government will give me a rebate, maybe I'll have a chveis, so someone will give me a yerusha. It'll happen. I'll open a book, I'll wait for the big sale, something may happen. But if a person is responsible, and a person knows the need, then you get up and you do something about it. You don't wait for others to do, and you join a project and a program. You wake up and you say, 1 second, if this is what I need, if this is a tzorech Rabbi, then you get up and you do something. Whether it's parnasa, whether it's habayis, whether it's to get married, whether it's in and of health. When you realize that the one responsible, the one who's going to happen is me, myself, it's a switch. It's a switch. A person can do something and it's a gate or whatever it is, but once you wake up and you have that switch, the light bulb goes on that you may not nearly and I'm responsible for this, then you start doing what's without time, the shmaya and keiches, this is a davar apasha. And everyone was in shock. The Rebbe says, and so many years passed. What else can we do? What else can we do? So Mustafa has spoken about it already many times. That it's like Hakel b'dei shamayim chutz mi'yirei shamayim. The Rebbe can't. I want Moshiach. The Rebbe can, the Rebbe is Moshiach, will Moshiach, brings Moshiach, does Moshiach. But if the kavana is that we need to want Mashiach, the Eibishter can't be. The Eibishter can't. You want to do Torah mitzvah. That's your bechira. You have to want it. And the Rebbe says Mashiach needs to be ours. That's part of Chabad. The whole concept of Chabad, the das, the b'tachteinim, the iskashrus is not. The Rebbe does everything. You have to do everything. With Mashiach, it's a whole different thing. With Mashiach is all malamayla lamata. It's like Aristamim from Golos. We can't get out of Golos. Mashiach has to take us out of Golos. The Eibush has to take us out of Golos. But here the Rebbe said there's another shlav. There's another Inyan here that maybe we didn't realize. There's two ways to look at it. One way to look at it is like from the Purim and Zayin Sikha maybe tzid. It is Hadoyres. We're not bottle enough to the Nasi Hadoyer. We're not truly connected to Yechidah Shebenefesh. So what the Rebbe does is not completely ours. Maybe we're not. So therefore, it has to come to every person. Or another way to look at it is the positive way. The Rebbe says every yid has a mitzvah of Mashiach. Every yid has to be your own Mashiach. We have to be our own Mashiach. And the Rebbe used the lashon later in the, I forgot which Fabrein it was. Yeder Einad of Zayin Rebbe, like the Torah Admur. You know, you should not be afraid of the Torah Admur. Everyone was like, what does that mean exactly? It means l'chayr in a very simple way. Very simple way. Let's say even when it comes to Meftzayim and Shlichus. When it comes to Meftzayim and Shlichus, the bottom line is a davke tanben. Now Yid has to put on tefillin. What your motivation is, whatever it is, you have to get the things done. As many women should light Shabbos candles, go to the mikveh, you should put on tefillin, you should learn Torah. It has to get done. Why is it getting done? Could be many reasons. This one is doing it because he wants to make a beautiful duch and give the Rebbe nachas ruch. This one is doing it because he needs to feel great. The other one, what's enough? Give me a why. You do it, you get it done. So that, but the Rebbe haste, I do. But if you look into the Rebbe's sichas and you listen to stories about shlichus in the early years, and the Rebbe Chadakov used to give over the Rebbe's Rebbes, it was clear that the Rebbe wanted a lot more. This is the apex of it. Tut als was kennt. Give it jeder von euch. But the word was always that it has to be yours. Chadakov once called a shlich in the middle of the night. He said, "Schloss." And he said, "Jetzt bin ich auf." Many shluchim had this concept. So he said, "Wie viele jüdische Kinder is da bei dir in Stadt, or Medina, wherever this person was? How many Jewish children are there in your town, or your place, your country?" He said, "Whatever, I don't know, 5,000." So how many of them have a Jewish education? Whatever the number was. So he said, "How can you sleep at night when thousands of Jewish children in your place don't have a Jewish education and you're sleeping at night? How does that happen? What's the message? What did he want the shliach should feel? What was the point? That besides being a soldat, and being a soldier, and being battle, and being a makusha, and everything that Rebbe wants, I want. And I'm going to go on Mesiris Nefesh. I'm not going to have any life for myself. Give me with the ganze Leben zum Rebbe. And get every year. The Rebbe wants to be your achrayus, not that the Rebbe feels every Jew in the world, and then the Rebbe feels the need of every Jew, and therefore the Rebbe sent emissaries that we should take care of you because the Rebbe is the biggest Rebbe. The Rebbe wanted you should have that Rebbe Abbas Yisrael. You should feel that it's your achrayus of all the Jewish children in your place. Wie schlafst du bei Nacht nicht? The Rebbe schlaft nicht bei Nacht, und du sollst nicht schlafen bei Nacht. That's not enough, says the Rebbe. Not the Rebbe wants Moshiach. It's important to the Rebbe, so it's important to me. I can't see the Rebbe crying for Moshiach anymore. I'm going to just scream out Masa. The Rebbe wants it to be your own. That's why the Rebbe told the Shluchim, it has to be b'simcha v'tov levav. I'm not going to be b'simcha v'tov levav. The Shlich is not going to be matzliach dik enough. No, then it's not going to be yours. Then you're not going to own it. The Rebbe explained that why he put Mivtza Avos Yisrael before all the other 10 Mivtzayim. The Rebbe spoke about it at the end, but in the Rishimah, the Rebbe put it first. The Rebbe spoke a few times because the motivation of all the Mivtzayim has to be Avos Yisrael. The guy says, the motivation of Mivtzayim used to be a year there in the valley. The Rebbe's 10 Commandments. I forgot what he used to say. He told him to put on do a mitzvah. Is it from the Rebbe's 10 Commandments? Then I'll do it. It's not the Rebbe's 10 Commandments. I don't know. I do the Rebbe's 10 Commandments. That's the motivation. The Rebbe's up Mivtzayim. But you have to do Mivtzayim. The Rebbe says, no. You should have Avos Yisrael. And a chesaron of another yid should be your problem. And there's a egbener that he doesn't have tefillin. And that should be your motivation. That we can sign, you should motivate, you should be motivated. You love him, you give him what you want. That's going to be your motivation to put him on tefillin. Why not enough to be, because then it's yours. And if it's mine, what's the chiluk if it's mine or not? Because that's the whole thing of bringing Moshiach. The Moshiach is in the Welt. The Rebbe's gracekeit is not that the Rebbe has so many soldiers. The Rebbe's gracekeit, the Rebbe says that the shliach, your das should be him, your chassid, that every yid, every guy, lahavdil, that his mind should be permeated with the Rebbe's way of thinking. That his own thinking should be the Rebbe's way of thinking. That's the deepest way. And that's l'chayre the pshat, that every single one of us has a nitzat Moshiach, the Rebbe says. And we have to, you want to bring Moshiach, every Moshiach prati, together we'll bring the Moshiach klali. Now it has to be our responsibility. Excuse me. As they gate us. Otherwise, we see in the world, things don't last and don't endure if it's not your responsibility. And we know that everyone has their own home, their own family, their own mesa, their own challenges. This one needs a diet, and this one needs a job, and this one needs an exercise, and this one has to build a mesa, this one has a family. Until you take a achrayus and say, this is my responsibility and nobody else's, something, that's when things begin to move. That's called Begashmis maturity, Baruchnis for sure maturity. And then it comes and say, and now we're 30 years later. And now what? Now we live in a world where on one hand, the world is getting worse, worse, worse. On the other hand, the world is getting better, better, better. Perhaps even the negative things is moving in this direction. You know, people are in a certain way alone, but in a certain way, people can take responsibility for themselves maybe easier than Amal. It's like a tziduf of the Yachid and the Rabbim in the best possible way in history. The koyach that a Yachid has today is unbelievable. The Gashmias, technology, whichever way you look at it, the power of a Yachid, what a Yachid can do alone to create a following in many different ways, inventions, that needed big teams in the past is unbelievable. And then the other way around, to get teams and influence Rabbim is also much easier than it used to be. The Rebbe said that it has to be a movement. That's the ganz klali Yisrael. Mashiach HaKlali comes through the Mashiach HaPrati. And I was discussing with the Shliach last week about this whole Inyan. So what's the pshat? We don't know pshat. Did Golos have to be this way? It shouldn't have been this way. Should Chavzayin know that it happened? No, Chazan didn't have happened. Did Gimel Tammuz have happened? No, it should not have happened. Should have Mashiach come a long time ago? Of course, it should have come a long time ago. But we don't ask why. We ask what. What do we need to do right now? Right now, it's clear that every day we have to ask ourselves, comes a day like Chof Ches Nissan again, is it my responsibility? And the Rebbe said, the Befrat misgeblieben in the Golas Hapnimi, which is a very, very powerful words when you hear it over and over again. And it's connected. It's connected. Golas Hapnimi is a Shvera Golas. The Golas Hapnimi, that doesn't seem to be getting better. But that is the solution. That's what the Rebbe is telling us. The solution is as jeder einer tut als was kann. You have to know, I have to know, every single yid has to know. We have to influence others, and that's how we pass on this message. That's how we talk to people about Moshiach. You have to live like Moshiach, you have to learn like Moshiach. The message is that it becomes every yid's responsibility. It could be it was spoken already before. I spoke to Shliach last week. Some shluchim wrote it in this past week's email that the whole Avodah can be hinted in the 4 words of we want Moshiach now. We want Moshiach now. This is the fear that you can put it all in a nutshell. Even though a nutshell doesn't work, but that's like a learning. That's what the Rebbe says. Geula Mashiach. You want it to become yours? You have to learn Geula Mashiach. Avodas Hashem has to change. You have to learn Torah. We have to have Mashpia L'chaim. Every time the Rebbe found more and more about Moshiach, he goes, Of course, every single Sikhan letter and everything is about learning more Torah and doing more mitzvahs. But to get out of the Golus Hapnimi and to get out of the Lernen, it has to become your own. How does it become your own? You learn Geula Mashiach, you influence Geula Mashiach, you start living Geula like the Rebbe said. And then it happens. What's the maskan of the 4 words? We want Mashiach now. The erste Zach is we. Why not I want Mashiach now? Why we want Mashiach now? If it's every single person's responsibility, I'm saying I want Mashiach now. What's the pshat we? We, the pshat is that, that you can't do it alone. You need everybody else. It's your responsibility, just like everybody's responsibility. They never said put him in Zion. Every yid that listen that kol ha'olam kula is on a balance, and your next mitzvah. The problem is we took it like a threat, like a guilt trip. Imagine Moshiach is going to come. You're not going to be embarrassed with all your wasted time of your life. Moshiach is going to come now. You're not going to be embarrassed. Moshiach is going to come now. What are you going to tell me? You're going to shemzach for Moshiach. You didn't put on tefillin to another 10 people. That's not yachriyas kol elam kulei. Gewalt. You better watch your next step. It's the responsibility. It's the schus. It's the ufgelebtkeit. That's the pshat of yachriyas kol elam kulei. When you're responsible for something, it's not the company's going to drop if I don't go into the office. It's a positive feeling of ownership, and that's what makes it happen. So why we? So why not I want Moshiach now? I want Moshiach because Klal Yisrael is ein zach in the end. In the end, we that you're wanting has to include everybody else around. It's we. We're all connected. Every yid is connected to each other. The Avish is all the source of all the mitzvahim. We're all one. And the Rebbe says we have to convince everyone in ourselves there has to be a want. It's not, we not pray for Moshiach now. We don't ask for Moshiach now. We don't need Moshiach now. We want Moshiach now. That's what the Rebbe was a sikha. I don't remember when. But the Rebbe explained, we want Moshiach now, that it's a want. A want is even stronger than a need. It's the fancy English. A want is like a very strong, I'm missing something and I have a longing, it's a felt made, and I can't be without it. I must have it, I must get it. That's the first step. When you realize that you have a want to something, you create inside through learning, through understanding a want, then it happens. What do we want? Moshiach. We have to educate ourselves. What do we want? Moshiach is coming. It's going to be good. That everybody knows. So if it's good. What is it? Learn. This is what it is. Whatever it is. And then the bottom line is the now. That's the hardest part. The hardest part is the now. The now is that it's the urgency. The now is the urgency. From Nissan Tafshin Nun till Nissan Tafshin and Aleph, that was Mashiach high. According to the Cheshbonis and the famous Maimer of 6,000 years, Tafshin Nun, that's it. That's the break time. Nissan Tafshin Nun, Mashiach should have came. Afterwards, the Rebbe started saying it makes no sense. And then 1 year, everyone says it was a 1 year. B'riyas Ha'olam is 0, B'riyas Ha'olam is 1. Tafshin and Aleph at the end of Nissan. What's going on? So Nishtab Apayel. And that's what the Rebbe wanted from us. We should have the urgency. And we all know what an urgency means. We know it, Rahman al-Islam, when negative things happen. So we're going to what's going to be, and we go full force. But this is an urgency in a positive way. That it should be that every yid is older head, and it's something we need, and we need it now. We want Moshiach Nishtan, Atog, and Svei. That was the whole beginning of the Sichas. Is weg. Not that Moshiach is coming, and plan B, something else has to happen. We live as and Moshiach can come, so it can come in. The urgency. Where is the urgency? And that every yid has to have. So it's taka. It sounds sometimes as interesting, but that's the Rebbe's message. We don't know the Eibishter's ways. But it's so many years after Gimel Tammuz, so many years after Chof Ches Nissan, 30 years already, Gewalt. So a whole day Chodesh, a new generation. What's the new generation's tut als was sie kennt? How do you take the new generation and say, many people say, I don't care about this stuff. American generation, the new age, millennial, post-millennial, I don't care about this. I don't care about anything. When we take the responsibility, so that unsere Sach, it's your job. It's ours. Then you make happen. When you care about something, you help other people care about something. and it becomes us. That's what people will hear. People today can hear it's your project. It's your project. That people can hear. And this is how Chassidim have to be educate ourselves. Yidden have to educate ourselves. Shlichus, whatever you're doing, that it's your feeling to the other Yid. You want to bring Moshiach. Of course, it's the Rebbe's keiches and the Rebbe's energy and his kashrus and all the good zaken. But the end is looking to ourselves, and part of getting out of the Golos HaPnimi, do I really feel responsibility? That's what the Rebbe gewollt. You learn so much Chassidus Chabad. We have such inspiration. We have such a connection to the Rebbe. No? Do you have Efes Kotseyu of Avish Yisrael like the Rebbe had? Do you have Efes Kotseyu of feeling an achrayus to every Yid in your neighborhood? Do you have Efes Kotseyu of feeling an achrayus to the closest people to us, to our family, to our children, spouses, parents, siblings, everything else? That could be done. The Eibishter will help. This should be the last day moments of Golos. We should take it from the Yad. The next moment, the next Maisa, the next Dibur, the next Machshava. And we want Moshiach now to everyone around us to be a good inspiration and influence to other people around us, to make them responsible, give them the responsibility. Not only to us, that Rebbe wants chain reaction, us to another Yid, to another Yid, to another Yid, that everyone is a achrayus for this to happen. When we bring down the Geula, take it from Yad Mamish, Umalkeinu Bereshenu, Amen.